Never. Welcome to Sales and Messaging, where strategy meets soul. Hi, I'm Dr. Nancy Zare, Sales with Soul.
And I'm Hirsch Repun, Holistic Brand Transformer.
Each week, we dive into real conversations around what it takes to gain visibility, build credibility, and grow profitably.
All while staying true to your mission and values as a smart, purpose-driven entrepreneur.
If you're ready to stop blending in and start standing out, you're in the right place.
Let's get into today's topic. Well, welcome to Sales and Messaging, and we should get into today's topic. Today's topic is claiming your space, and I don't just mean our space in our little boxes where we're sitting on Zoom. I mean our spaces in leadership and business and getting the kind of results we want and accomplishing our mission. And that requires us taking up some space, doesn't it, Nancy?
It does. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about planting your flag. You know, what do we stand for? And each of us does stand for something. The challenge, I think, Hirsch, is that although we stand for something, some of us are a little reluctant to broadcast it in a big voice.
Yeah. And so what we're getting at is that we have to strike a balance. You know, fame, I'm growing up, I guess, I wouldn't say I grew up in the entertainment industry. My family wasn't in the industry, but my kind of adoptive family, one of my close friends from college, his family was, and I worked for them right out of college. And in New York City, theater, Broadway. So being around all of that, show business, show families, the fame bug was a big word that got thrown around. Oh, you have the fame bug. Somebody has the fame bug. And people in business would not presumably have that fame bug. They would be focused on the behind the scenes or the deal making. And what I've learned now as somebody who's helping people build their personal brands and leverage them to accomplish their greater goals is that many of them don't have the fame bug, because if they did, they'd be out there on stages or on Broadway. And but the question is, Nancy, just because you don't crave fame, does that mean that you don't need brand awareness?
Oh, holy moly. The answer, of course, is a resounding you need brand awareness. And as you were sharing that, I couldn't help but think of one of our favorite clients with whom we've worked together. And this is a person who's extremely professional and competent. And she is in process of actually developing a speaker's reel. We've seen the first draft of it and so forth. But as we spoke with her, Hirsch, her goal was not to become famous. But her goal was to become a visible, noted thought leader in her community. And I'm thinking there is a difference between being that, celebrity status individual, and we could tick off a whole bunch of them right away. But you don't really have access to this person. And yet the folks who are perhaps giving a similar message have a similar body of knowledge and skill set that they're offering people. You can get close to them. And in many cases, you can learn as much, if not more, from that individual as the person on the stage who you really don't have access to.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of a shift in perspective. If you think about it, Oprah, which is one of the biggest personal brands in the world, has done so many good things, has done so much to change the world in a lot of different ways. I truly believe she has leveraged her personal brand for those reasons. And she knew that by being a personality, having her show in Chicago, starting Harpo, starting OWN, doing these things, that she could leverage fame to serve obviously to make success for herself, but to serve her audience, literally.
The greater
Um,
good.
yeah, the greater good. And I think that fame, like on that level, and let's
Mhm.
say, other examples in entertainment are Tom Cruise, people, Tony Robbins in the coaching world, people whose names are bigger than life. All that really means is that whatever their mission was, they recognized that they need to unabashedly pursue the elevation of their image and their name, their brand, so that it almost becomes a household name. But that doesn't indicate that somebody is an egotist. I mean, they may be, somebody may be, but that isn't. It's just that they recognize how important that brand awareness is, and I really hope that um, that we can help people start to think of it that way. You know what you need? Better brand awareness. It's not you need to be famous. You need to be the next blank.
So true. Because as I was thinking about that, the people who trade their personal brand, so to speak, for this larger brand, as you were suggesting, they actually sacrifice privacy. They, you know what I'm trying to say?
Mhm.
They're because they become a household word. It's kind of like Kleenex. We don't talk about tissues, we talk about Kleenex, and then Kleenex had to work very hard to get the word tissue back into the vocabulary.
Yeah.
Same with Xerox, etc. And so there's a sacrifice that you no longer own what you own, and so
Mhm.
you've lost something in becoming famous. Whereas the person that we're helping them become visible, claim their space, put their stake in the sand so that others can rally around and say, yes, you're the one who can help me achieve a certain transformation.
Yeah. And also, we're talking about, the people we help for the most part are B2B, entrepreneurs, service providers, and so forth. Yes, some create consumer products, and that makes them a B2C operation. But for the most part, they're known within a certain community. The
Mm-hmm.
and that is not what we think of when we think of fame, and I think they need to think of it that way. Also, I've learned from talking to people, talking to clients, that having people that have, this is why we're having this conversation, because when I did a poll recently of my audience, 38% wanted to talk about how to succeed without being famous. So that really shocked me, because I thought that was really an indicator, but also that they don't want the invasiveness. They don't,
That's
we
what I
live in
was
this
saying.
Instagram. Yeah, we live in this Instagrammable world, and they just don't. They're not having it.
Yeah, you see, it goes back to what I also find about my clients. They don't want to be pushy, aggressive, and salesy, and yet you have to ask for the sale. The most recent statistics suggest that 90% of people don't ask for the sale. And it's because we're not looking for that. We don't want to push ourselves on people. And yet we do need to raise our hand, open our mouth, and tell somebody, I'm ready. I'm here. I want to serve you. Let's work together.
And by the way, I'll tell you a roundabout way to accomplish that is third party validation. And third party validation comes from getting up in front of an audience and speaking, and having those people go and tell their friends and saying, "Oh, I saw Nancy Zare speak. What a revelation." And then that sale becomes a lot easier when someone says, I was talking to someone I really respect, and they have a lot of regard for you. And I would love to talk with you about, maybe helping me out. Well, that's a very different sales conversation.
Yeah. And what you said really made me again go back to this message that we do need to ask. Because if you're in front of that audience and you don't plant the seed of sharing the message, telling others, using my name, then it's lost. And I think that too many of us are hoping that the other party will be smart enough or inspired enough to do it on their own. But Hirsch, we do need to have what's called a call to action. And it should be just one call to action. Where we get bogged down is when there's multiples, but there needs to be a very clear call to action.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nancy, because a lot of times we confuse our messaging. There's all kinds of reasons why we do that. There are fears. There are, we don't want to lose business, so we want to broaden our message. Then we broaden our message, and not enough people, there. If we say we do specific kinds of, we make these little bead toys, these little bead alligators that my daughter taught me how to make. I think she made this one. That's why it's really good. I made this one, which is not as good, but it's interesting. Anyway, if that's our specialty, we make these little bead alligators, then we're like, okay, but what if they don't need a bead alligator and they need a bead balloon or a bead or squirrel? What do we do then?
Yeah.
And I think we need to make sure that we know ourselves inside and out and know what we're really capable of so that we can claim that space. The space doesn't need to be uber specific and exclusive, but it does need to be us. It does need to be who we are.
Yeah, it needs to be who we are, which is where the authenticity comes in. And again, it goes back to a brand to be recognizable for what it is that you convey. What you are in a particular space with a particular point of view. Does your audience know what that is? Can they say it? And for many of us, like you say, it's garbled, it's jumbled, and that's because we're trying to serve everyone and anyone, and hence no one is hearing what we have to say.
I'm thinking about all the different kinds of people and how they present, and I'm struck sometimes by how many people describe themselves. We talked about this on my last talk, the Wealth Respect talk. How many people describe themselves as introverts?
Mm-hmm.
And I have engaged with some of the most well-spoken, eloquent people who describe themselves as introverts, and they've had to overcome that in order to communicate and claim their space. But they do it so gracefully and with so unassuming. Conversely, there are people who claim their space without even thinking through who they are. So that they may have a real P.T. Barnum kind of flair and a sparkling jacket that looks like a mirror ball. It could be anything. It could be any kind of crazy thing. They're real show people, but they haven't given thought to how that connects to what they're providing their audience. So that introspection is priceless.
And I'm wondering if there isn't really an emptiness or hollowness, because there needs to be substance. It has to start with something of value in order to claim your space. But as you say, there are a lot of people into performance who aren't necessarily into education and value.
Yeah, I was guilty of that myself when I was doing stand-up comedy. I did a lot of stand-up comedy where it was character driven, and sometimes the characters were very deep and very interesting, but in other ways I was just hiding behind those characters.
You immediately made me think of Robin Williams, who, was such an amazing talent, but never really could appreciate what his own value was. And he too hid behind many personas.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that fear alone is one of the things that's worth working on when you're trying to claim your space, because your space is supposed to reflect who you are inside as a brand, as a business owner, as a CEO. Those things are descriptors, but who you really are in business and life, that's very personal. Hence, in my view, personal brand. That's what I think it is. It's not your name, it's the internal. It's not just the external. The external is easy enough.
And you use the word descriptor, and it made me think of our last episode about noun sense,
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's what descriptors are, right? And
Yeah.
I want to conclude on this note, which is that when you do know what you stand for and you have that brand, when you've claimed your space, it's like the doors, like you've walked into a photoelectric cell and the doors automatically open, because now your audience hears and knows and applauds who you are and what you're offering.
Well said. Well said.
All right. So, any last marks before we close this episode?
Yeah. I was just thinking that it has to do with kind of the claiming your space thing is a way to guarantee that your message is what you want it to be, and that you're hitting the note you want to hit. It is about the recipient of the message. So for the people who say it's not about me, it's about the audience,
Yeah.
you are doing this
Mhm.
for the benefit of the audience.
Amen. And that's who we are, Hirsch. That's why we come on week after week after week. To your sales success, we have an outro. And any, again, last remarks?
No, we'll see you next time.
Okay, to your sales success.